here we are, and now coming to the text of this poem, I am reading for you. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So here in this first stanza, it's using antithesis to show how the world was collapsing. So the line "the falcon cannot hear the falconer" actually shows the verifiable functions of societies failing. So if the falcon cannot hear the falconer loses his purpose. So here the very first line, the turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. So the bird falcon is flying around a widening gyre. So he flying around and around in a widening gyre. Gyre means spiral, and a falcon can no longer hear the calls of its owner. The falconer means one who breeds and trains falcons. So here the word falconer is a symbol of man's higher spiritual aspects. So in this the poem begins with the phrase turning and turning in the widening gyre. So this sentence evokes an occult symbol that perpetually fascinated W.B. Yeats. Widening gyre means interlocked circles. A gyre is a spiral or vortex, and Yeats believed that the universe was comprised of interlocked circles which together make up individual lives that form the whole of existence. So here when the humanity, the whole world or humanity is at its chaotic state, and then people forget the all spiritual principles, fundamentals, the human values, then the falconer or the god or the owner has nothing purposefully to convey in here. So this first line is just a complex way of saying that something is happening in this world, and something is churning and awakening. Some new existence is rising out of the current haze of life that we all live in. And so the things fall apart and the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The poet is saying that here when the things fall apart means things are breaking down, and their foundation is giving way to pure destruction and lawlessness everywhere. The destruction and lawlessness have spread across the world, and so mere anarchy means the world in a situation of flux and disorder. So there is restlessness, hopelessness, chaos, and anarchy is everywhere. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. So when the pure destruction and lawlessness have spread across the world, so there has a tidal wave of chaos darkened by bloodshed. So all the ceremony of innocence is drowned means all the celebration of all the rituals of innocence have been swallowed by this chaotic tide. So when this happened, then what happened? The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. then the all the best people, they are lack of all conviction. So conviction means the belief system, the trust or the faith of the people. When their faith is destroyed, when the best people aren't motivated to act something positive, and on the other side there are worst people, the who have ill will, and those worst people, they are full of passionate intensity, means they are impatient and eager to act. So at that moment we can assume that the whole world in a chaotic state, and when people lost their faith and conviction, and the scenes of violent bloodshed have become the hallmark of the day. So then means these lines, they portray that the intensity of the prevalent anarchy of that time. So the poet has conveyed that the whole first section we can find that the speaker observing a world that is losing touch with order and morality. So violence is destroying innocence. People have become detached from their leaders, their spiritual values. Something fundamental is dissolving, and people who believe in goodness are being silenced. They are they are demotivated, while the loudest or the worst people or speakers, they are the villains and chaos bringers. They are full of passion, full of intensity. So these things are happening. Then at this chaotic situation, in the next section of this poem, the poet is revealing some kind of a revelation, hidden things, when he says that surely some revelation is at hand, surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out when a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight, somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. So in the next stanza, the poet is talking about some kind of revelation. He says that some kind of revelation is about to happen very soon, and the second coming itself must be close. So he is expecting some kind of a second coming. So here the phrase second coming is suggestive of the second coming of Christ according to Bible. So that Christ is expected to come again and set everything right in the world. So excitedly the speaker here exclaims that the second coming. But just as the speaker says these words, the second coming, then a vision comes to the speaker from the world's collective unconsciousness. The spiritus mundi means the collective spirit of the world or the mankind. So the speaker here, when these words hardly come out of his mouth, he imagine a vast image of spiritus mundi, and what he sees, that a kind of sight troubles his eyes, troubles him, and what he sees in a desert, that a kind of shape with lion body and the head of a man. So the speaker sees here in the barren desert land a kind of creature with a man's head and lion's body is coming to life, and its expression is like a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs. So its expression is like the sun, empty and without pity. And this creature has no pity at all, and its legs are moving slowly, and all around, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds, and all around it fly the shadows of disturbed desert birds. So there are desert birds who are flying around it, and then the darkness drops again. So when the shadows of the birds disturbed the sight, everything at that time everything becomes dark again, and the speaker knows something is about to happen, and he says that, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were waxed to nightmare by a rocking cradle, and what rough beast its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So the poet is saying that when everything becomes dark, then but the speaker knows something new, that 2000 years of calm have been irreversibly disrupted by the shaking of a cradle. And the speaker asks that he asks himself that what kind of rough beast is coming out there, what beast whose time has finally come and is dragging itself towards Bethlehem, where it will be born again. So in the second section, the poet reveals a kind of hidden things in the second section, when it begins with the line, surely some revelation is at hand. So here we find that the speaker is sure that some major shift is happening around him. All this chaos cannot be an accident, certainly it cannot be an accidental thing. He said that something vast is coming, some distorted version of the Christian apocalypse is descending upon the land, and some ending is approaching. So here the speaker is actually talking about his vision of second coming, his vision about the second coming. So this new world, which redefined by all the violence and chaos that occurred in the past time. So this might look like him when he thinks that about the spiritus mundi, which is spiritus mundi is a Latin term meaning the world spirit, the collective human consciousness, and he thinks about this spiritus mundi, and he begins to visualize images within this world spirit, including desert sphinx, so that strange creature who has man's body and man's head and lion's body. This is suggestive of a biblical reference of sphinx, and the shadowy birds also who are circling around that rough beast. So by the end of this poem, the speaker is become more sure that something even worse is coming. So some nightmare, some rough beast is rising or approaching the earth at a rapid pace. He doesn't know what this creature is, but he can sense its approach, and it is the ominous core of the second coming. The second coming, that mysterious tide of evil and mystery approaching the world in the form of a modernity full of violence, war, and loss of traditional meanings and values. So, with this, we have come to the end of this poem, where in the first part of this poem, the poet is talking about the restlessness, the hopelessness, chaos, anarchy, and the loss of people's faith, all prevailed in society or in world of that time. And in the next part of this poem, the poet visualize a kind of huge shape or of with a human head and the body of a lion propping out of Spiritus Mundi. And he feels that the long era of dominance of Christianity is on the verge of a decline, and a ferocious, cruel, tyrant civilization in its budding stage. The tyrant civilization is about to come, is about to evolve. So with this, we have come to the end of this poem, and I would also like to talk about some literary elements of this poem, where first of all we can talk about that this whole poem is written in the first person. In the first person point of view means when the speaker only mentions himself only, and not we cannot find the other listener or other character in this poem. So this is written in the first person, and the poem is written in very loose iambic pentameter, though it resembles free verse in more in places of this poem, and there are metaphors and similes also. So the falconer, these are the metaphors, and representing the humanity and a controlling prevailing force. So falcon represent the humanity, and Falkner represent the kind of controlling force that sets human on a specific path. And the metaphor, the blood dimmed tide, this metaphor of is used for the waves of violence. And the next metaphor is in the line, the ceremony of innocence. So this phrase is a metaphor for the entirety of human innocence and goodness. And the next metaphor of that rough beast is also that shape of rough beast is also a metaphor suggestive of the meaning of mystery or some kind of rapidly approaching of a second coming. And moving ahead, we can also find alliteration in the poem also here. The very beginning line of this poem, turning and turning. So the poem begins with the words turning and turning, and the repetition here immediately conjures up a sense of reverberation or mirroring that echoes throughout this poem. And so the repetition of t sound we find here, so the alliteration is used, and Falcon and Falkner, the repetition of the f sound. And in the second section of this poem, we find the word surely and the phrase second coming. So this phrase, the second coming, are repeated in the start of the second section. So each are respectively examples of alliteration. And then there is also in above in the first part of this poem, the falcon, falconer and fall. So here the repetition of the letter fa and center cannot, darkness drops, stony sleep. So there are also pairs of repeated consonants that create a kind of lyrical sense. They add lyrical sense to the poem. And now the poet also uses the literary device irony in the line, the best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So this is an example of irony, because it is ironic, almost bleakly absurd, that the worst people are the most passionate and the best are the least determined to make their voices heard in its apocalyptic poem universe. The tone of this poem is ominous, some kind of prophetic, unnerved foreboding. And with this, we have come to the end of this poem. I hope you have understood it better. Now, thanks for now.